You mentioned to me as we were chatting, prior to the interview that you had to cut a bunch of interesting anecdotes from the book. Would love to hear any tales from you covering this whole saga.
Um, yeah, what did I'm trying to remember things we did. So one of the so Adam has his wife is kind of kooky. And like we didn't get that much into this, but she was really like big into, she was responsible for a lot of people being fired. Like she would make snap decisions about people and fire them. So one story is on this is first or second day, there was an airplane mechanic. And why does a co-working company have an airplane mechanic? Well, it's because it bought a $63 million private jet. And so if you're going to buy a top of the line private jet for your CEO, you might as well have an on-staff mechanic. So the mechanic is on staff. Rebecca, Adam's wife, meets him, and within minutes then complains to Adam, who then, within minutes makes a decision, and then, subsequently complains to Adam, who loops in his staff, and the decision is made that the mechanic needs to be fired because Rebecca does not like his energy. And then this became a frequent problem. They were churning through airplane staff, and so toward the end of their lives at WeWork, the HR department had to offer so much of an incentive to get a pilot. They had to, and staff, like they had to guarantee a pilot would be paid 100% of his salary for a whole year, regardless of how long he lasted. So because, they were prone to firing pilots apparently. So,
and what is it do you think about like pilots and air mechanics in particular that have do they have a certain type of energy, do you suppose?
No, I think that, well, I think, or what everyone said was that Rebecca was absurdly neurotic about the plane, and very nervous about, I don't know, the pilots doing this or that. So, and the crew kept getting fired, because you have stewardesses or whatever on the flight attendants on these. It's a pretty, it's not a full size 737, but it's not a small private jet. It can fit like 16 people. So she was super neurotic, and actually, like, another issue is they once made a top executive there effectively be the guinea pig, because they didn't want to be the first to fly it at WeWork. So they had someone else fly it first to, make sure it would not crash. At least that was the impression that staff
had. I remember there's one of the photos that you put in the book is, as I was flipping that, because I went to the photos first.
That's the intent. I don't know why we put them in the middle.
Picture of a fire extinguisher, and I was like, why is there a picture of a fire extinguisher here? But that's the did he spray that on Masayoshi?
No, it was the Chinese investor. So when after having this boozy trip in China, with this guy who's promising over $400 million to WeWork, Adam then invites him to New York to sort of finish up the deal. And there's a party that WeWork has at this location of one of its new buildings, where they were actually doing We Live, which was apartments too. And so then as the night drags on, there's a few people left, and Adam brings everyone up to the roof. And you weren't supposed to be able to get to the roof, but Adam sort of figured out a way. Someone else got in trouble later because it's supposed to be Adam proof and resident proof. Like you don't want residents going on the top of the building. So he goes up there and then starts giving speeches and has everyone do tequila shots. And then he's a crazy guy. And so then he brings out a fire extinguisher and then just sprays the crowd with it, including his new investor, who is sort of like half covered in this white foam. And so the picture was of the next morning when someone had to go clean up the fire extinguisher and tequila shots.
Tequila seemed to be the fuel. That was the preferred. Always appearing in the story, like, here come trays of tequila shots.
This is one of those culty aspects where Adam wanted to impose his or thought that his view of what fun was should be absolutely everyone's version of fun. And so he liked tequila, and therefore tequila was what the company drank. And so they would literally, as particularly in the early days, have trays of tequila that would come out for all the locations would have these little mini plastic shot glasses and bottles of tequila on hand. And then they would just pour shots for the whole company, and then everyone would toast together. And like, it was sort of, some people told me it was kind of a coup when they convinced WeWork to also pour some water shots for the people who didn't drink alcohol, so they didn't feel completely left out. And so, yeah, like Adam loved Don Julio 1942 and would just routinely, this is how he was a good salesman, like at 10 a.m., some investor would walk in the morning, and or potential investor or landlord, and Adam would be like, welcome to WeWork, and like, here, we have fun here. And then he'd make them do tequila shots with him.
Which is, reminds me of Mad Men, and, like seeing how much they would drink. And
yes, it's kind of crazy that the business was able to function. Like I can't really do anything after half a glass of wine, but yeah, it would be early on, and then this would happen in the evenings too. Like, he would show up drunk at meetings sometimes and kind of spout out like crazy goals. We have this scene of meeting with a bunch of real estate executives where they're sort of lagging in their targets for whatever for the year, and Adam comes in and he's drunk and then passes out. He's like, get the tequila, and they pass tequila shots for everyone in the room, and then he goes around the room and says like, well, how far off your goal are you? And they're like, I'm 20% or whatever, and he's like, okay, well, the new goal is like 50% higher or 20% higher. And so this is while intoxicated or while apparently intoxicated.
I've made some pretty good decisions while intoxicated, for sure.
Some people can do it. I'm not one of them.
Definitely some epic road trips undertaken immediately afterwards.